Hey guys, this is Anthony from the Xbox Boomer channel here with you today, and welcome to episode 12 of the Xbox Boomer Project. This is an audio only show where we basically cover a variety of original Xbox and Xbox 360 games. So we talk about them, we go through everything, the gameplay, the graphics, if the game sucks balls or not. So that's what we're here for. And if you're not looking for an audio show or a podcast, please go ahead and just click off of this now. This probably isn't what you're looking for. So today's game for number 12, we're talking about a game that I played on the Xbox 360, and that game is Silent Hill Homecoming. Okay. I have a lot to say about it. I did complete the game in full here in November of 2024. So I played it from start to finish, blind. I never beat the game in my past. I never, ran through it before. So I have a lot of feelings on it and a lot of things I want to tell you about. So I guess first off, just for you physical collectors out there, I do have in front of me a physical version of the game for Xbox 360. So this particular version of the game, I do have complete in box. Okay, so it comes with a cover art on it, of course, like any game. And the cover art for this one, if you guys haven't seen the game on like store shelves before, it is of like a family photo, like a portrait almost. So you have this guy who looks older, maybe like a 30-year-old man, and he's in like a almost like a button-up dress shirt, and he looks very pissed off. And then you have this creepy looking little kid right next to him, and he looks like pissed off or like demon possessed or like very creepy and weird. And all you can see is on the bottom corner of, or excuse me, the bottom center of this family portrait, you see the name Shepherd. And so, that kind of is a little weird of a cover art, but that's on the game case. And then inside the game case, like I said, I do have the manual for the game, and it's in all black and white. But it does have some helpful information, actually in this manual, which, it is fairly thick. It's not one of your skimpy, like 2-page game manuals. And it tells you about, accessing the menus, using the save points, the different controls in the game. And when I was making notes for this audio show, I actually did refer back to the manual. So I was really glad to have that, in the game case. Um, and as far as I know, I've owned this game for roughly, I mean, I'm spitballing, but maybe like 2 to 3 years. And I want to say I probably paid about $15 American money for it, $15 USD. Um, this game, I've seen it through the years. When I was a kid, I had seen this on the shelves back when it had come out. And the game was for months and months. This game sat at 59.99 here in America, and that was always a very expensive price to pay as a kid for one game. It was always hard for me to convince my mom or dad to buy one expensive ass game like that. And so I never got this game when it first released. And then later on in life, I did get a PlayStation 3 console that I've talked about in previous videos of mine, that I traded a bunch of, I think retro video games for back in the day. And I was probably a teenager and I picked this game up on the PlayStation 3. And I remember distinctly that I only paid $9.99 for it. Um, Now I never beat it on the PlayStation 3. I picked it up again for the Windows PC. So I had the computer version of the game. I played that for a couple hours when I was a teenager, but I still just couldn't beat this damn game. So this is one of those games that through the years, it's kind of looked at me funny and kind of haunted me a little bit. I really wanted to say, yeah, I've beaten, a Silent Hill game because I've played several Silent Hill games, through the years. I've just never put any substantial time into them. So like I said, I heard about this game back in the day, and there's certainly, I mean, if you guys aren't familiar with Silent Hill as a franchise, there's a lot of Silent Hill fanatics out there. So there's people who are absolutely obsessed with this this game series. I was not one of those people as a kid. I mean, I like I said, a couple of these Silent Hill games kind of exchanged hands, coming and going with me. Um but like I said, I was a Resident Evil kid growing up. I didn't play Silent Hill. I didn't give a hoot about Silent Hill. I played all the Resident Evil games on like my PS1, PS2, all that stuff. So this was a pretty fresh experience for me running through this game. Um, so now Silent Hill Homecoming nowadays, it is a little more spendy than what I initially paid for it. So if you are looking to buy this physical for either your PS3 or your 360, just because of the fact, the namesake that it is a Silent Hill game, I would not be surprised if this stupid game goes up in price. This game, like I said, I think right now it's like $40 or $50 US. I can't really remember because I don't watch all these prices that much. Um, but just know, I mean, this game has been climbing for several years, little bit by little bit in price. Um, and even if you look at some of those prices for old Silent Hill games, like Silent Hill 3 on the PlayStation 2, I'm pretty sure that freaking game shot through the roof. I think that game's well over $100. So just know these Silent Hill games are sought after going in for you collectors out there. And like I said, they always go up, man. People are trying to grab them with both hands and shove them down their pants. Um, but Silent Hill Homecoming is a third person survival horror game. Okay. So like I said, very, very similar and comparable to a lot of Resident Evil titles out there. In this game is loosely connected to all of the other Silent Hill games. So it's not a direct continuation. So this is not like following characters that were in previous games. But it does have kind of the same atmosphere, some of the same references, and locations too. Um, so you're definitely gonna have a at least a familiar feel if you played some of those old PlayStation 2 or original Xbox, Silent Hill games. Um, Now you don't have to play those games if you haven't already. I mean, by all means, if you want to start at Silent Hill 1 on the PlayStation 1 or Silent Hill 2, on like your original Xbox, you can. That's it's not going to hurt anything. But like I said, I had never beaten any Silent Hill game before jumping into Homecoming. And I had a fine time, just playing through this one by itself. So I would call this a standalone game. Um, Now, Homecoming does have a lot of mixed reception. If you get on the internet, you start your Google fingers firing up, and you're like, oh, you punch in that little box. You're like, is Silent Hill Homecoming a good game? Does Silent Hill Homecoming suck? You're gonna get a lot of mixed feedback. At least in my opinion, for me doing lots of research. And I think that's mainly because there was a lot of controversy with the development of Silent Hill Homecoming. So we'll go ahead and talk about some of that. So Silent Hill Homecoming was developed by a company called Double Helix Games. And that, I've never played any games that I know of by made by Double Helix. And we'll kind of unpack that a little bit. But it was published by a very popular publisher out there, called Konami. And Konami or Konami or whatever you want to say, depending on what region you're from. I mean, I'm a hillbilly white dude, so I'd be like Konami. But you might have a little bit better dialect when it comes to saying that one. Um, but yeah, I mean, Konami or Konami, they've worked on everything from like Frogger, on the mobile games to Silent Hill, so there's a wide breadth of game categories that they've published over the years. And Silent Hill Homecoming was originally conceptualized, and that's a fancy word for thought of, by a group called The Collective. And so this game was not originally started by that company, Double Helix Games. It was actually started by a company called The Collective. And during development at some point of this game, that company, The Collective, which again, I've never heard of that company either in my life, merged with another sketchy sounding company called Shining Entertainment. And so those two companies together is what formed during the making of Silent Hill Homecoming to make Double Helix games. So it's kind of a confusing development story because there's a couple lesser known companies that make you scratch your head like, who the hell are these people? And they merge together to make this all new company, of game developers that I'm sure a lot of us have never heard of in the past. And sometimes that can be a good thing, and sometimes that can be a really piss poor, bad thing for a video game. Um, Now, if you don't know, I had to do some research because, like I said, I didn't grow up with, loving Silent Hill. I mean, it was around me growing up, and a lot of my friends talked about it. It was, very popular in video game culture. But like I said, it wasn't my first priority of a game series. But Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, and 4, which span across, the PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, and the original Xbox, those games were all developed by the company known as Team Silent. Okay, so those are like the guys who originally came up with the Silent Hill games. So a lot of your cult classic Silent Hills were developed by that group. And Silent Hill Homecoming was the first game that was not developed by Team Silent. And this is after I did some digging online, this is basically because Konami wanted Silent Hill to be tailored to what they call as Western audiences. So I take that as dumb fat Americans. So basically, Silent Hill was a very like a Japanese style of horror game. So it was a old school PlayStation 1 psychological horror title, and that's a lot of fancy mumbo jumbo, but it was a spooky Japanese game pretty much. And what we were playing here in America, it was a little bit different than what some of those other audiences around the world prefer in a lot of their video games. And so by creating Silent Hill Homecoming with this new group, Double Helix Games, they were hoping to kind of get a smash hit, from here in America, Canada, some of us, dumb fat Americans. Um, Now, this really, when they did this, it really tore the Silent Hill fan base apart in shambles, from what I understand. Because I mean, I can't blame the traditional Silent Hill players either, because Silent Hill Homecoming is drastically different than your first couple Silent Hill titles. Um, I could see this back in the day being a totally different type of game because I mean while it shares some similarities in the atmosphere and the storytelling, the gameplay is radically different than some of those earlier Silent Hill titles. Um, Now during the development of Homecoming, there was also several changes in the management and the employees that worked on this game. And I dug and dug and dug online trying to find more information on what they meant by management changes. And it seemed like a lot of the facts of this during the development had been kind of scrubbed from the internet. I mean, I could find some articles talking about, like, yeah, a lot of people who worked on the game, partway through, they stopped working on it. We brought in new people. I found, articles talking about, like, yeah, some of the management up at the top, while we were making this game, they weren't working out, so we had to swap them out for someone else. But it seems like there's just something missing in the development story of Silent Hill Homecoming. So me as an average dude, I've spent time in corporate America and a lot of bullshit jobs through my years, and it makes me wonder, was this company, this Double Helix Games, was this a revolving door? Is this just like companies were coming in and floating out and bebopping around as this game was being made? I mean, I really scratch my head to this day, kind of wondering what the real story behind Silent Hill Homecoming was. Because I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, from like an impartial third party, it sounds like it was a freaking mess. It sounds like, the game license fell into these people's laps, and people were just constantly coming and going and didn't even care about this game. Or maybe cared a little too much and couldn't actually, make the final product what it was supposed to be. So I have some skepticism there, but that's just one man's opinion. Um, Now at some point in the Silent Hill Homecoming story, it was proposed by the developers that it should be a standalone game trilogy. So at one point while they were designing this game, they actually thought, well, let's not make it a part of, base Silent Hill. Let's just make a Silent Hill Homecoming 1, Silent Hill Homecoming 2, and a part 3. And I don't know how that quite came to be, or what the thought process on that was, but I thought that was very interesting, because this is typically known as being like now here in 2024, this is known as being like a spin-off Silent Hill game. It's not really, a numerical entry like a proper, Silent Hill 5 or 6, let's say. Um, but back in 2007 at a E3, which is a popular entertainment expo for electronics, Silent Hill Homecoming was originally presented as being Silent Hill 5. Okay, so when this started development, Silent Hill Homecoming, that game is what was supposed to be the proper sequel to Silent Hill 4. This was supposed to be an actual, numerical entry in the Silent Hill series. And obviously it didn't quite end up being that. This was changed to be a spin-off, and I wonder if it's because they knew, by the end of the development that it wasn't good enough to be Silent Hill 5. Again, that to me, just knowing corporate America and knowing all the, turmoil and the muck and the sewage in that environment, I kind of wonder if that's what it ended up being. Like, oh man, we finished this game and it's not as good as we had hoped. Let's just push it out the door. Click, slap a new name on it. They knew, they were like, oh, fans are gonna be pissed with this one. So I really, I mean, I'm serious. Just going into it, knowing the development story, I mean, I think it's super interesting, and that really raises a couple red flags for me as a gamer. Um, Now in North America here, Silent Hill Homecoming came out on the Xbox 360 and the PS3 on September 30th of 2008. So this was another game peak Great Recession. This game came out, and then about, well, a couple weeks later, on November 6th, 2008, um, this game came out for the Windows PC. And it actually released, I believe, on Steam. If you're familiar with Valve's Steam platform for buying digital games for the PC. Um, and then I suppose if you are a modern console gamer, I should let you know that Silent Hill Homecoming is backwards compatible for the Xbox One. So if you do have an Xbox One console, you can actually play this as well as Silent Hill HD Collection for the Xbox 360. Those games on the same day were available, to be played on backwards compatibility. So that's actually pretty cool. Um, but that's another topic for another day, because I'm extremely underwhelmed with the backwards compatibility project on the Xbox One. Um, so this game, One of the first things you're going to see when you start a new game on a homecoming, there's two difficulties to select. So there's a normal mode, that's the easiest difficulty on this game, and there's a hard mode, of course. Um, and I did play the entire game through on normal, because I knew there was puzzles in this game going in, and I'm not a puzzle type of guy. I'm more in these games to get the hack and slash, combat, and a lot of the storytelling elements. So I wanted to play it on the easiest difficulty, just to kind of save some time and some hassle. But I will say, the normal difficulty and the hard difficulty do have several differences. Some of those do, of course, make the combat more hard, in regards to like damaging your enemies, or taking and receiving hits. The puzzles are significantly harder, depending on which difficulty you choose. And then also things like some of the ammo capacity in the firearms, it's going to be different based on which difficulty you select. So they are significantly different. And I will tell you, as far as I know, there's no way to change the difficulty mid game. So if you're playing on the hard difficulty and you get to a section of the game that's whooping your ass, there's no way to undo that halfway through the game. So you really, this is another game. You want to be selective of which difficulty you're choosing, because you're kind of stuck with it. Um, and yeah, normal difficulty, I'll tell you some of the reasons why as we go through. But it did give me a run for my money. And I mean, I'm no stranger to playing 360. I'm no stranger to playing horror games. I mean, there's a lot of horror games I run through just fine, especially on the harder difficulties. But this is a game I definitely want to talk about the difficulty level on normal as we go through. So we'll save that for a little bit here. Excuse me, I'm just gonna get a drink real quick. These podcasts, they and audio shows, they always kill my freaking throat, man. Every single time I have to drink water. So, anyways, the story in this game, it is interesting right from the beginning. So once you start a new game in Homecoming, it's gonna follow a guy named Alex Shepard. And Alex Shepard is basically a war hero. So he's a veteran of one of the armed forces. And he's on his way home after going to war. And so he lives in or at least before he went to war, he lived in the town of Shepherd's Glen. And Shepherd's Glen is it's a little bit smaller town. It's not a city, as big as something like Chicago. Um, it's a little bit more modest, small town feel. But they still have things like, a hotel, church, a grocery store, a cemetery, things like that. So it's not extremely rural or anything. Um, but the game starts somewhat randomly, and you're going to be playing as Alex Shepard all the way through this game, through and through. And the game starts on a like a hospital bed or a hospital gurney, and so you're looking in first person, and you're strapped to this hospital bed, and you have no idea why or where you're at or who you are, and you're going to be pushed against your will on this gurney, through this hospital. And you're looking around on this little hospital gurney, seeing like, oh, where am I? What am I doing here? And you see several other patients in this hospital, being cut open, being tortured. They're screaming for help, and so you realize very quickly, like, oh, this is not a normal hospital. Like something is going really really bad here. Um, and you see this surgeon or this guy in like a surgical mask and scrubs, like doctor scrubs, and he's kind of pushing your little gurney or your little hospital bed through the hallways. And your character Alex is yelling. He's saying like, "Hey, dude, like, what are you doing? I want to get out of here." And he brings you to a room, and you stop. You stop going through the halls. You're just put in place. And you're sitting there thinking like, "Oh, am I gonna get tortured? Am I gonna get beaten? Like, what's gonna happen in this hospital room, in this operating area?" And the surgeon goes to leave the hospital gurney, and you can't see exactly what, but he gets killed and impaled by some creature that's right outside the door. And that's kind of where the game jumps you in from the start. And you're just strapped to this hospital bed. And you're thinking like, oh crap, like, okay, this is kind of random, but I guess we're playing now. And there are a lot of button pressing segments. They're almost like mimicking quick time events. But a lot of them are a single button that you'll have to press in this game. So in one of the upper corners of the screen, it'll show a small button prompt. And it'll be like, oh, keep tapping the B button or keep tapping the X button on your controller or, whatever button that it decides. Um, and so, it'll prompt you to press one of these buttons. And when you do in the beginning of the game, your character Alex is going to break free from this hospital bed, and lose his restraints. And that's really when you get full, free motion control of your character for the first time. It's like I said, pretty quick in the gameplay. It's right away when you jump in. And you're basically from the start, you're going to be running around this dilapidated and demonic hospital, just trying to figure out who you are and where the hell you're at. And in this hospital, like I said, it's not a normal hospital. It is severely deteriorated. There's a lot of like demonic and satanic like essence to this hospital. So just a lot of like unexplained, very cryptic and creepy areas. Um, and something's just a little twisted and off about this hospital. Like it's not like a real world place. It's like you're somewhere else. And very shortly into exploring this hospital in a third person, you're gonna find your little brother, and you're gonna say, "Hey, what the hell are you doing here, man?" And for some reason or another, your little brother is obsessed with running away from you. And so, as you're playing as Alex, you're going to be wandering the halls, just looking for your little brother. And his name is Josh. And you're going to be finding, like why he's there as well. Um, Now, at one point, very, soon into gameplay, this is just a couple minutes into the start of the game, um, Josh is going to be behind a locked gate that Alex is not going to be able to get through. And you're going to be able to talk to and interact with certain characters at certain points in this game, as it comes up in the story. And so you're going to be able to talk to Josh and ask him a couple questions. And he's going to ask for a toy that he left in one of the other hospital rooms. And that's basically your only option to progress through that locked gate is to go find your little brother this toy. I believe it's a stuffed rabbit, I want to say, if I remember right. Um, and so you're gonna have to go search through this demonic hospital and look for this toy. Um, and during this, you're gonna encounter several of your first enemies. You're gonna find several of the first item types in the game, like a lot of the healing items and things like that. A lot of the quest items, because you're gonna have to find certain items to progress in the story. They're gonna be kind of placed strategically or hidden within the level. And it's going to give you a good introduction to combat and the different puzzles in the game. Now, eventually, of course, a few minutes later, you do get this toy that your little brother is looking for, and it's going to be, just shortly after that, that Alex is going to actually wake up in the cab of a semi truck. And he's sitting in the passenger seat, and he basically wakes up from frantically from this nightmare he's having. So that kind of explains the beginning of the game. That oh wait, this demonic hospital isn't real. I actually wasn't restrained and fighting all these monsters, and all these enemies. It was just a bad dream. So that's kind of the first nightmare sequence of the game. and when you're gonna get your first, fully fledged cutscene, kind of explaining who the character is, Alex Shepard. Um, so yeah, a lot of this game is, it's going to be similar to the introduction of the game. So that's a really good taste of what you have to look forward to, moving forwards in this game. Um, Now when Alex is in the semi truck, you're gonna find out that he is in fact on his way back home to his family. Like I said, in the town of Shepherd's Glen. Um, Now when Alex gets home, because I mean, during the first cutscene of the game, the first fully fledged cutscene, um, you're gonna find very fast that, just like the hospital, things are a little twisted back in Shepherd's Glen. And what I mean by that is that everything is abandoned. All the shops are closed. Nobody's walking the streets or driving around. Um, there's fog everywhere. A thick wall of fog surrounds the entire city through and through, and people are missing. There's nobody, like I said, out and about, and there's missing posters for missing people all over the place. So something's not quite right. And Alex basically from this point is going to have to wander through the fog and the monsters to find all of his friends, his family, find out what happened to the town, and how to get everything back to normal before he left for the military. Um, Now that kind of sets the stage for Silent Hill Homecoming. An army veteran coming home and having nightmares, and something isn't quite right about home. Um, Now a lot of the graphics in this game, I'd like to tell you about that a little bit. They are mid tier for the 360. So the graphics, they're not something horrible, like playing Two Worlds or just like a very entry level, 2006 Xbox 360 title. Um, it's actually okay to play for back then, but nowadays I would use the term if you're playing Silent Hill Homecoming in 2024, this game is just tolerable. It's not great, but it'll get you through. If you want to listen to the story and see what this game has to show you, it'll get you through the woods. Now, there's not many extra details. If you look close and there's an examining tool that you can use within your inventory to closely inspect a lot of the items that you find. There's not going to be many extra details when you're looking in those kind of like examining sections of the game. And some objects definitely look worse than others do. So not all items in this game are created equal when it comes to graphics. A lot of the the characters, like the actual player models, the weapons, like a lot of the guns and the melee weapons in this game, the animations when you're attacking and moving, and a lot of the enemy player models are actually pretty lackluster, unfortunately. So this is not a game to go back to for the graphics. Even for the time period, they're pretty lackluster. Um, but I will say, I mean, at least I think where it falls in graphics, it's at least a little better in the gameplay department. The gameplay of Silent Hill Homecoming, a lot of it is going to be exploring this town, Shepherd's Glen, where a large portion of the game takes place. And Shepherd's Glen is basically going to be this hub area. So in a lot of sections of this game, you're going to be searching for clues of either like where people went or where to find certain items in Shepherd's Glen. And you're like I said, you're going to be looking a lot for other characters in the game world around town. Um in Shepherd's Glen, you're going to access different linear set pieces of the game. And once you're set into those, story pieces from the actual hub world, those, when you complete them, are going to advance the story. So like I said, Shepherd's Glen, It's going to be an area that you go back to time and time again, and from there you're going to access kind of like your set story missions with a lot of your cutscenes. Now, for all of this game, you are going to be locked, to a third person, behind the back camera view. So when you're running around, you're going to see all of your character, for the most part in this game. It's not like a Gears of War 2 style, behind the shoulder. It's a little bit further panned out. If you played Gears of War 2 for the Xbox 360, for example. Um, and there is a significant focus in this game on two things: melee combat and puzzle solving, which I was actually pretty surprised of because I knew about the puzzle solving. Because Silent Hill as a franchise is notorious for, their cryptic and difficult puzzles. Ever since the PlayStation 1 era, that's kind of been hearsay throughout the gaming world. Um, but a lot of the melee combat, I was shocked when I found out the level of melee combat that is in this game. Because even games, I mean, pretty much like I said, a direct competitor to this game was the first, Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 1 was extremely competitive with Silent Hill 1. And the Resident Evil series, from the first few entries, there is a significant amount of different guns and ammunition types that you get within the game world. And I can't say that is exactly the case with Silent Hill Homecoming. It is very heavy in the melee combat area. Um, so a lot of these melee weapons you're gonna access. Just to name a couple, because there are, a couple things that, a couple disclaimers, but you're going to have a knife. So from the very beginning of the game, pretty much, you're going to have like a standard combat knife with you. Um, you're going to have a steel pipe that eventually you come across. So that's just literally like a piece of piping off of the wall. Your character is going to be able to swing that. You're gonna find a fire axe, a couple different types of axes actually, you can find. There's a crowbar in the game. If you think about Half-Life, crowbar just like that. He's gonna swing two-handed. And there are a lot of specialty options. And we can talk about that a little bit later. Um, but one thing I did want to hammer home, if you guys haven't played Silent Hill Homecoming, is that a lot of the weapons, especially the melee weapons, they can be missed. And so if you're not looking around every hidden room on your map, every hidden little, back alley corner, or if you just Google them, of course, you can miss weapons, and the game does not give you another chance to get those weapons. So if you miss something in the beginning of the game that you were supposed to find on your own and pick up, you're not going to have that for the entirety of the game. I mean, you get one chance to find things in this game, and that's it. And I thought that was rough. I thought that was harsh as hell for any type of third person game. Um, just very unforgiving. Um, Now some melee weapons deal more damage than others. Okay, so some are stronger. Um, but a lot of those stronger weapons are slower, unfortunately. So that's the drawback most of the time. Um, Other weapons are a little bit weaker, but they do strike faster, so you can get more consecutive hits on an enemy. If you do have a quicker weapon selected. And then of course other weapons have more reach than say like the starter knife in the beginning of the game. So that's something to consider. Um, Now there are two different melee attacks in this game. So you're gonna hold the left trigger, and the left trigger is kind of like a lock-on button. So you're gonna lock on to the enemy that you want to strike. And then you hit the A button with that left trigger held down, and that's gonna be your quick attack. So that's your quickest option just to get a little jab in on them. And then there is a heavy attack with the X button. And so what you can do is kind of string these attacks together by hitting the A button and the X button. So, you can form combos, but I will say, as opposed to like a fighting game, like Mortal Kombat 9 for the 360, um, these melee attacks are extremely sloppy. I mean, they feel like very slow and cumbersome when you are chaining those melee attacks together. Um, but a majority of what I did throughout this game, I used kind of like this noob combo that I kind of created. It's just a very simple, bland way to play the game, but it works. I would tap my buttons in sets of three. I would pick one of the longer weapons like the let's say like the steel pipe or the fire axe, and I would hit AAX, 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 and I would just keep spamming it whenever I had an opening on an enemy. So that's two quick attacks and then a heavy attack, and that seemed to be a really good combo that I used time and time again. Um, Now, there is a dodge mechanic that you're gonna want to know about while using, a lot of the melee mechanics. Um, so, sometimes when you're in the middle of striking, an enemy will kind of wind up an attack to strike you with. And you'll see it coming, like a second or two ahead of time, and you can press the B button on your controller in standard control scheme, and that will allow you to dodge the attack. And then that'll, of course, if you successfully dodge an attack, that usually leaves you like a 1 or 2 second opening where you can strike that enemy. Um, I will say, one thing the enemies can do if you're kind of engaged in a melee combat with them, they can knock your character Alex down, and Alex kind of falls to the ground for a minute. And that was a big pain in the ass in this game. If you're in the middle of chaining a combo together, and then all of a sudden the enemy gets one cheap hit on you, just out of being an asshole, you can get knocked down for a few seconds, and then you're surrounded by a few enemies by the time you get up. And I did not like that. I thought it was very annoying. And overall, like I said, if you couldn't tell already, I did not enjoy the melee combat in this game. It was very unfortunate, um, because this a majority of this game, despite what you might think from the reviews or the cover, the game case, a majority of this game is melee combat, and there's no getting around it. There's no ifs, ands, buts, or considerations. You're gonna get good with that damn fire axe and that pipe, buddy. There ain't no negotiating. Your ass is gonna be swinging that lead pipe. That's your only option. So, that was, I mean, just very unfortunate. I would have liked to see this game go a different route, like Resident Evil did, where I get guns and I get lots more ammo and I can go to like a little shop and buy more. I would have liked to see more of that, or maybe even a hiding mechanic. Something like that could have made this game a little more pleasurable, a little more tolerable. Um, Now there are firearms in the game, so I can't say there's no guns. But the firearms are very scarce, okay? And ammunition is significantly limited. So when you find, let's say, one of the starter guns is a like almost like a Beretta handgun, um, and you'll find pistol bullets, usually in like a set of, let's say, 10 rounds. You'll find a box of ammo, it'll say pistol ammo, and you pick it up, and you can get up to 10 rounds off of one box of pistol ammo, I believe. And, you want to actually count those shots and make every one count. And you only really want to use them on the enemies where you're gonna need help. Because like I said, if you burn up those 10 shots, there's no telling when you're gonna find another box, or if you're even gonna find another box. Um, because a lot of this stuff can be missed. And just like the melee weapons, if you run past a firearm in the game and you either don't see it or you forget to go back and pick it up, the game is punishing as hell. you do not get another chance in the entire story mode of this game to find that gun. I mean, the game punishes you severely. I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy shit. You mean if I miss it one time on accident, I never get it again? And believe me, I'm telling you this from experience. I missed several weapons and several items running through this game that I really could have used. I was pretty pissed off that I lost out on some of those chances. Now, I will say another mechanic you should know about is when you pick up, let's say, pistol ammo, you can only hold a certain amount of pistol ammo in your inventory, and that goes for all the different types of firearms in the game. I forgot what the number is exactly, because like I said, I'd have to see it. It's been a minute. But if you pick up, let's say, you have close to the proper amount of the max capacity of ammo in your inventory, if you click the A button on that pistol ammo, you might be picking up only 2 rounds out of that box of ammo, and the rest just goes to waste. So you really want to know about that because then, let's say you're at full ammo capacity and you find a box of pistol ammo sitting on a, workbench, you can go shoot an enemy or two with 10 rounds out of your inventory, and then you can run backwards and go backtrack and pick up that pistol ammo. So that way you get like the maximum effect and the maximum purchasing power of every bullet in your inventory. And that's something I did a couple times through this game. Um, Now as far as firearms, like I said, there's not just pistols in the game, but there are plenty of pistols. There's also shotguns. There's a variety of different types of rifles in the game. That are, of course, those are better weapons than like your starter pistol. Um, and then there are specialty guns that we can talk about a little later, and it'll make a little more sense when I get to it. Um, but yeah, the actual combat with guns in this game, it's gonna be like your normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill third-person shooter. So you're gonna aim with the left trigger, hold that down, and your character is gonna kind of aim down sights. And your crosshair is gonna zoom in a little bit, and then you're gonna use the right trigger to fire the gun. But there is one slippery, little bit tricky mechanic in this game that I have to tell you about. It's gonna be the trigger pull that's on certain guns in this game. And so on your controller, the trigger pull to shoot the gun on the screen is meant to simulate a double action trigger pull. So it is it's almost like a two-stage trigger if you're a gun guy or familiar with guns in real life. Um, so, you pull your right trigger, let's say about halfway while your character is aiming down his sights, and nothing happens. It feels very spongy on your trigger, and the first time you're gonna shoot a handgun in this game, you might be like, what the hell's going on? As you squeeze your right trigger like a third of the way or half the way down, and nothing happens. And it's not until you reach like the second half of like the actual, squeezing the right trigger down on your controller that your gun's going to fire in the game. So it's a very interesting concept to do it that way. It's meant to simulate like a real gun, like the trigger on a, an actual handgun that you could buy at like a sporting goods store. So I like the idea. I think it's a good idea. But it was very poorly executed. In general, I mean, it just sucked. It felt very sloppy and unresponsive, shooting a lot of the guns in the game. Because I never knew where the actual grab point on my right trigger was for shooting the guns in the game, I was constantly missing shots from like the handguns in the game. And I couldn't figure out what the hell to really do in those stressful situations. Because, like I said, you're counting every bullet in this game. Like, you can't afford to miss because you're gonna pay for it. Um, Now you can carry all pretty much any weapon you pick up. you can cycle through all of them at once. So it's not uncommon to have like a large number of melee and firearm based weapons in this game at one time. And you're going to use the left arrow and the right arrow on the D-pad to switch through all of them. Um, and inventory management in general is going to be a core gameplay mechanic in Silent Hill Homecoming. So you do have a couple more mechanics on your controller for that. The right bumper is actually a almost like a weapon wheel. So it's another inventory screen. So you hit the right bumper on your controller on the standard control scheme, and it's gonna almost like pause the game, and you're gonna see a like a very rudimentary wheel where you can see all of like your your combat related items. And then if you hit the left bumper, it's gonna pull up a very similar wheel that also almost like freezes the game. And then you can see all of like your quest items. So you'll see like all of your different, like you can pick up different drawings that you can look at off the ground that your brother Josh leaves you. You can pick up different keys and different items that will help you unlock, locked doors and things like that and solve puzzles. And you can pretty much inspect any of the items in the game if you want. You could pull up your inventory wheel and click to examine those items. And you could kind of like spin them around the screen to look for, a clue that might be hidden on those items or, just to get a better look to see what the hell that item is. Um, so, you'll need that feature for a lot of the puzzles in the game, which we'll talk about. So, another gameplay mechanic that's going to be pretty baseline for this game, through a large majority of it, is going to be that puzzle solving. And so, the puzzles are necessary for progression in the storyline. So there's not going to be really any negotiating as far as like solving the puzzles goes. Like if you're just a third person shooter kind of guy, you just want to boot up your Xbox after work or whatever, kill some creatures, shoot some guns, hack some limbs off. This is really a pain in the ass, if you ask me. Um, because I mean, I even on the normal difficulty, which keep in mind that's the easiest difficulty you can play on in this game. I had to cheat on a lot of the puzzles and look them up on Google. They were not easy puzzles, especially once you progress a little bit further into the game. Um, I'm not going to spoil anything. I think I forgot to mention this, but this is a spoiler-free review. Okay, so rest assured, I'm not going to spoil any of the the main plot points or the the puzzle solutions or anything for you. Um, but a couple puzzles that I did have troubles with. Um, there was a puzzle later in the game that you get to with some stone wheels, kind of like on a door and then on the ground. And you kind of have to line up these different icons that are all around this stone wheel. So you're turning this like stone wheel and it's changing like which excuse me, which icons are kind of lined up in a row. And I had no idea what the hell the game wanted me to do. I actually sat on the the voice chat with the AI robot. I was asking Chat GPT. I was like, "Hey, bro, like, what the hell am I doing wrong here?" And even the robot didn't know. He was sitting there arguing with me. I'm like, "Hey, bastard, just tell me the answer to this puzzle," and he couldn't figure it out. And I just kept Googling and looking on YouTube, and I eventually just followed somebody's walkthrough because it got very frustrating very quickly. Um, and then the other one that I never really figured out that I had to cheat on and look online was these. It's a couple of different times it comes up in the story mode. They are these almost like wire electrical boxes, and you have to reroute the different colored wires so that you can turn the power on in certain areas. And I couldn't figure out what the hell the point was, or what the clue was, they have these different green like lights that light up on this power box as you're moving these wires around, anywhere from like one of them to like three of them to five of them will light up at a time. And I had no idea what the hell the problem was. I had to look up a couple different videos to just to figure out how to get past that. So I have no shame nowadays in cheating on games if it means I can keep playing them. Because, like I said, I work my balls off, dude. Very undesirable, job field and whatever. And I want to come home and play video games and actually enjoy them. I don't want to sit there and beat my head against the wall on these dumbass puzzles. So that's something I should tell you about. Because, like, when this game came out, back in 2008, I mean, I don't even know if I had internet. You know, and so, for somebody out there that wants to play this and they don't have access to like watching YouTube videos to pull up the damn puzzle solutions and stuff, I mean, there would have been no way back in 2008 as a kid that I would have beaten this damn game. I mean, it just wasn't happening. I mean, you gotta seriously on those puzzles. I would have had to cheat my ass off. It just wasn't happening. So you should know those puzzles. A lot of them are really an inconvenience, and they give you very little context to go off of. I mean, you're really just casting out in the water and seeing what the hell bites, on these puzzles, trying different solutions. Um, Now there's also I wouldn't call them puzzles exactly. They're more like riddles that you're gonna have to solve in place of a puzzle. And so, sometimes you'll need to find a certain number to access, a keypad on a door, or you'll have to find the proper place that you need to put like an emblem that you picked up, a little like stone emblem, and it'll have like a little riddle somewhere. Let's say like on the wall, you're supposed to put these emblems together, and you'll have to crack that riddle. And all every time that these riddles were going on, I mean, they were not straightforward whatsoever. I mean, I couldn't find out what the hell the clues were or what they wanted me to do or wanted me to guess. Um and like I said, even these little riddles that weren't full-blown puzzles, I had to cheat on a lot of them on normal difficulty and just look up what the damn answers were. So you very well could find yourself, following a walkthrough, just trying to find the different puzzle pieces in this game, or finding the solutions. Um, Now another item I want to tell you about in this game, is the flashlight. And so, the game is very dark in a lot of sections. Even when you're in the fog, the game can be pretty dark. So if you hit the up arrow, or if you go in your inventory, you can turn on a flashlight, and you pretty much have that from the beginning of the game. And some enemies are sensitive to the flashlight, and so if you do shine your flashlight beam on certain enemies in the game, they are more prone to attack you and come after you. So that is something you can kind of mess with and toy around with in the game. And then you also have a like a mobile radio. It's kind of like a walkie-talkie with you from the beginning of the game. And I didn't really understand the radio mechanic until probably like partway through the game. Because it isn't, as far as I remember, it's not really clearly explained to you when you find the radio in the beginning of the game. Um, but basically, this radio is going to buzz whenever enemies are nearby, as long as you have it turned on. Because through the inventory screen, you can turn the radio on and off, depending on just what your situation is. But like I said, it's not self-explanatory at all. So it's one of those things to find what enemies the radio is actually going to buzz when they're nearby. You're gonna have to mess with it a little bit. And I do believe that certain enemies are sensitive to the radio as well. So they might come attack you or, run faster at you if you have that radio turned on and you're walking around with it. You also have a map screen in this game, so you can go and look and see your player's location a lot of times, and where different things are located in the game world. It is like an overhead style of a paper map, so it's very rudimentary, but a lot of the important stuff is labeled. And every individual area that you go in, you're going to have to find a new map, which kind of sucks sometimes because, like I said, if you miss a lot of this stuff, you're not going to be given another chance to find it again. So you're gonna want to probably keep tabs on that. And sometimes the game will just give you a map, kind of like story related, or right on a desk that you have to walk by to progress the story. So some of them, I mean, it didn't give me a lot of troubles, but just be aware any of the inventory items you can miss. So that's, I mean, I can't stress that enough. Um, Now it'll also show you which pathways are locked in this game if you take a look at your map. So if you've tried a door already, and it's not a door that like you have a key to or whatever, it'll mark that on your map, which is nice. For knowing that, oh, I already tried that way. I got to go somewhere else. And then the other thing that I found that was really helpful on the map screen is that through Silent Hill, you're pretty much stuck in the area of Shepherd's Glen or in the area of Silent Hill. So the road system is severely damaged. So if you follow the road in the town too far, where the game doesn't want you to go, there aren't any invisible walls. But what the game developers did is they basically, made the road split in half. So you'll just be walking along the road through the fog, do to do to do, and there's a 200-foot drop where the road is just fractured in half, and Alex won't be able to cross that. And so that it'll actually show you on your map screen which areas of the road are broken, so you don't waste your time going down there, because that can be a big time waster in this game, is just figuring out where to go. um, Now there are save points in this game. There aren't really checkpoints or anything like that. No auto saving. So the save points are basically these orange emblems that are going to be on the sides of walls in set locations. And so, there you don't need an ink ribbon like in Resident Evil or anything like that to save. You just go up to these orange emblems and you hit the A button, and you can save as many times as you want to. Um, but it's only in certain locations. So if you, let's say, save your game and then, you kill 10 or 15 different enemies and walk through 3 rooms, if you just shut your Xbox off, none of that progress saves. So you kind of have to play for a few minutes to find another save point before you can actually, quit your game. Unless, you don't mind replaying all of that. But for me, I think they did do a good job spacing out the save points in this game. They didn't seem too unfair or anything like that. And a lot of times, right before different fight sequences or plot points, they did offer a at least one save point for you. The only thing I would say, I have two mentions on save points. You can screw yourself over in this game because if you, let's say, you only have one save file, you can use all your med kits, all your consumable items like your pistol ammo and your shotgun ammo, things like that. If you save your game and then you boot that game up and keep playing, and you find that you're in an area with a ton of enemies in it, you might get your ass handed to you, where you're now in a very difficult situation, and there's no way to load up an earlier level or an earlier checkpoint to go get more ammo or to conserve more of your ammo. And so, what I did to kind of help myself out in this game, and I would recommend this for anybody playing this game, I think you can save up to it's maybe like 5 or 6 different save slots on the 360 version of this game. You can stagger your save files on this game. So, the first time you save, save on the first save slot, and then the next one you jump down to save slot 2, and then save slot 3, and so forth. That way, if you're getting your ass beat into a pulp, and you can't find any ammo and you're just at a really difficult section in the game, you at least have a fighting chance where you can load up, 2 save files and go try to conserve more of your ammo or, find an additional med kit or something like that. So that could be very, very helpful for you. Um, Now, I've mentioned the enemies quite a bit in this game, and I think I mentioned to you that they're monsters, but I haven't actually told you what those monsters are. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to give you a general idea, I do want to tell you about a few of them. So all of the creatures in this game, for the most part, and all of the enemies, they're going to be pretty much like demonic creatures. So a lot of them are, exactly, monsters that you would imagine, coming out of a portal from hell. So they're pretty evil looking. But some of them are just kind of stupid, to be honest with you. Like one of the stupid ones is they have these giant like bugs that crawl around, like giant beetles, and they kind of fly a little bit and crawl around by your feet. And a lot of times, Alex can just step on them and squash them. And sometimes they jump on his head and they start humping his head. And it'll ask you to spam one of the, the action buttons, the face buttons on the controller, and then Alex will rip that bug off of him and smash it on the ground. Um, so that's kind of one enemy I thought was pretty out of place in this game. Um, there are some spider-like zombies in this game, so they're not actually zombies, but they're like these weird possessed creatures. And they kind of crawl on the ceiling and on the floor like little spiders. And they have like katana blades for hands almost. So kind of creepy. They have these annoying freaking farting gas zombies, and these zombies they have a giant like boil on their chest or on their neck. I can't really remember. And they will like blow fart gas at you, and they'll kind of make your guy stand there and cough. And then of course, as your guy is standing there coughing, you can be attacked by different creatures. So that was a very annoying enemy. I didn't appreciate very much was the fart zombies. Um, Now that one zombie or creature or whatever you want to call it, um, I call it the hammerhead shark zombie. And that's a creature that happens a little bit later into the game. And the hammerhead shark zombie is just like that. It's like this. I don't even know. It's this weird thing with like a split head. It looks like a hammerhead shark. I don't know. It looks like a guy running around with a hammerhead shark face. And those zombies were a pain in the ass to fight. I wasn't a huge fan of those either. And again, I don't know. I'm sure there's some cool guy name to call all these critters, but I'm just calling it as I see it. There's these tree trunk zombies that kind of look like elephants for whatever reason. So they have these giant tree trunk arms, and they're kind of like the brute type of strong enemy in the game. And then I call them an elephant zombie because they actually have some dude's hand as like an elephant trunk, and they're running around kind of like pile driving you. Those are some of the little bit tougher zombies or enemies in the game. There are these feral dog type of enemies that are basically just exposed pink muscle. And those are pretty fast zombies or enemies, if you want to call them that. I don't know what you call them, creatures. But a lot of these enemies, even if they are a little bit faster, you do have a good chance at outrunning them. So that was a common technique I used in this game. was just trying to solve puzzles quickly and find items quickly and running past a lot of the enemies just to not piss myself off by fighting them because the like I said, the melee combat's very sloppy, and just to conserve my items, like my healing items and my ammo. And then there's even little zombie creatures with like predator claws for hands, from the movie Predator almost, and or like Freddy Krueger claws, and they kind of crawl around in the water. So you'll be walking through like waist high water in the game, and there's even little zombies that are swimming around underneath the water. So there's a lot of enemies, and those aren't all of them, but just to name a few, those are a few of the common enemies you'll see time and time again. Um, One enemy that is featured in this game is an enemy that you guys might have heard of. That's called the Pyramid Head, and this confused the hell out of me because it's exactly as it sounds. It's basically just a zombie with a giant sword and a literal pyramid for a head. And I was a little upset by this because you don't actually get to fight this creature or interact with him in a direct way. And this is a character that I had heard from my friends through the years for a very long time. And so there was a lot of hype behind this character known as the Pyramid Head, before I even put Silent Hill in my Xbox. And I mean it's a little bit of a spoiler, not much though, but I mean I was very upset that I mean I didn't get more explanation on what the hell a pyramid head was, or I mean that I even got the chance to battle one. Um so that was a little disappointing as far as the enemies come in this game. Um, Now some of your strongest enemies in the game are going to be the individual bosses that you're going to face, because there are plenty of boss fights in this game. And typically, the thing I do want to mention about a lot of the boss fights, and again, we're going to be very surface level here. Okay, sorry, gotta get another drink. We're going to be very surface level. Um, you can bring items that you've had in your inventory into the boss fights. And so, if you've been saving a lot of ammunition and healing items, you can bring a lot of that stuff with you to fight the bosses. And that usually makes the boss fight significantly easier if you've been managing those items appropriately. Um, some of these bosses, though, can give you an extremely hard time, especially if you didn't go back and find all the hidden items, or if you wasted all of your, pistol ammo, all of your rifle ammo, all of your first aid kits. Even on normal difficulty, because the bosses are primarily melee combat focused, it really pissed me off a couple of these boss fights. Um, I want to just touch on two of them real quick here for you. Um, I'm not going to tell you the names of the bosses, even though that was something I really thought hard about if I wanted to talk to you about. But one of the first boss fights you're going to go in, it's in a very, very small room, and it's a very tall boss, okay? And at this point in the game, I had maybe a couple of the smaller health items left in my inventory, and I had hardly nothing for ammo. And I sat there for, I mean, a good chunk of time, wailing on this damn boss for minutes and minutes with the fire axe, which is one of the better melee weapons in the game. And I wasn't doing shit to this boss. And I mean, I was getting pissed off. I was swearing at this boss, calling him every name in the book. I mean, I was just shy of about having to throw my controller against the damn wall. And and my wife had to calm me down and tell me, hey, it's time to take a break from the game. And like I said, I think this might have been the second boss of the game. It's hard to remember which order they come in. um, but for the second boss in the whole damn game, when I wasn't even like halfway through the game, um, it's pretty upsetting. and that's on the easiest difficulty. So I feel bad for the poor bastard who starts this game on hard mode. I mean, who knows how hard that freaking boss fight is? Um, I mean, a lot of these bosses, they don't stop pouncing the living piss out of you, and they are significantly stronger than you as far as the hits they can take. And they can strike a lot faster. And you're, a lot of the common run of the mill enemies, you can be a little sloppy with your melee timing and still, kill them and save some of your health bar. But the boss fights, a lot of the dodging mechanic and a lot of the chaining the combos together, you have to be, pixel perfect on how you're pressing those buttons, or else you're gonna get knocked to the ground and get the piss beat out of you. Um, and then I guess the second boss I did have troubles with, of course, was the final boss. Because in my opinion, I felt like the final boss fight, which again, I'm not going to tell you what it was or when it happens, um, but I thought it came out of nowhere. I mean, I wasn't even expecting a damn boss fight, and I thought it was completely random. I mean, you guys let me know if you see this and you played the game before, but I thought that last boss was random as hell. I didn't have a whole lot of nothing in my inventory, and I wasn't ready for it because there's, like I said, there's a lot of timing your combos together, a lot of timing your dodging, and by the end of that last boss fight, I was just playing for giggles. I didn't think I was actually gonna beat him. I was laughing my ass off the whole time because I thought it was ridiculous. How much I was getting ganged up on, and by the end of the boss fight, I did beat it my first try. Unlike that second boss, I had a sliver of health left in my health bar. I had no healing items left and absolutely no ammo for anything. So it was by the skin of my teeth. I beat that last boss, just barely. I had just enough to do it. So just be warned. For you younger players out there, this game might whoop your ass a little bit. Um, so definitely, it would definitely help you out to go back and go through all the little side areas on your map and all the spare rooms. That way you can get as many healing items as you can, and as much ammo as you can for those boss fights. Now the healing in this game, how the healing works is that you're gonna have a couple different items you can use. So you can use first aid kits, which are your little bit stronger healing item. You're gonna get health drinks, which the health drinks are the ones you're gonna find the most often. They're the most plentiful healing items, but they don't do much as far as filling your health bar up. So they might recover, let's say, like half of your health bar, something like that. And then you're also in certain areas of the game, you're going to be able to find serums. And serums are typically found in a little case, on a countertop or on a bench or something like that. And when you use a serum, it will not only fill your health bar all the way, it will also expand your health bar. So it's like a permanent health boost that you can get for Alex. Um, and that was not really explained too well in the game. Like I feel like I had to discover that for the first time through trial and error. But maybe I just missed like a note on it that was laying on the table or something. Um, but yeah, you do have a little red health bar in this game. And of course, as you go down, the red bar, gets slimmer and slimmer, and it is non-regenerating. So it doesn't matter how low your health gets. If you don't find one of those health drinks or one of those first aid kits, you're in trouble because that health bar ain't going up at all. And at that point, you're gonna just have to, hope you find something and just run past all of the enemies. That's really your only option in this game. Um, Now there are a finite amount of all of the healing items in this game. So once you use them all, they're done. Like I said, there's no shopkeep in this game. There's no trading or bartering. you find what's in the mission, and that if that's not enough for you, then you're done. You got to really conserve every item that you pick up in this game. And that can absolutely destroy your save files. So definitely, I mean, I would recommend saving if you can before you even use one of like your first aid kits or your health drinks, if you can. And it's very confusing at how you actually use those healing items, and it's very easy if you're not used to it, to waste those healing items because you basically pull up your inventory screen, excuse me, and it'll ask you like, oh, you can hit the X button to use a health drink, or you can hit the Y button to use a first aid kit. And there's been several times where I've been trying to pull up my map screen or something, and I open the inventory and I just hit the Y button, out of like chance, like just messing around trying to get to like the map screen or the inventory or my weapon wheel. Um, and because it's not second nature, controls in this game. I mean, they're very awkward and clunky, and I've burned through a couple of my healing items on accident, which really sucks. Um, Now in this game, there are two different styles of game that you're going to be playing in Silent Hill Homecoming, because there's two different parts to this that keep reoccurring, one after the other. So the first that you're gonna see, is gonna be portions of this game that are gonna be similar to the hospital sequence, in Alex's nightmare in the beginning of the game. And those are gonna take place in like a almost like a hell realm, that you're gonna visit from time to time. And these happen at random. You'll be walking around the city, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the walls will start deteriorating. And you'll feel like Alex has been transported into hell. And you'll see what I mean as you play through the game. And then of course I've told you plenty about those other Shepherd's Glen segments of the game, where whenever you're not in those hell sequences, you're going to be running around very dark levels that are primarily filled with fog. So that's another large part of this game. Um, Now there are a lot of locations in this game, even though most of them do take place around the same areas, Silent Hill and Shepherd's Glen, the two towns that are mainly in this game. Um, but you're going to be, going through different city streets. You're going to be traveling through a hotel at one point, family homes. You're going to be visiting public parks, a cemetery, the sewers. You're going to visit that hell realm that I told you plenty about, the hospital in the beginning of the game. You're going to visit a junkyard, even a penitentiary, and there's even a lot more that I'm leaving out. So you're gonna get to see a lot of different areas of these cities. Um, and then as you meet the characters in this game, I should mention to you that there are many different dialogue options, that you can select. Or I should say many, because it's really just two at a time. But when you do open a dialogue with certain characters, the game will sometimes prompt you, either with the X button or the Y button, that you can choose a different response to give to that character, um, in the middle of like a discussion or a cutscene. And then this is really random and just very vague when you select the different outcomes to these discussions. Um, because a lot of times the discussion that you're having with that character doesn't have any context behind it whatsoever. So like you'll just be randomly walking, for example, like one of the dialogue options you'll get is in a church, and it's just very random. Like you're walking along and then all of a sudden you're just talking to someone behind a wall, and you're like, "Oh, hey, guess I'm picking one of these options." And that was very weird for this game. I don't think they really needed that, in a very linear story game like this. um but it's in there, so that's something you get to look forward to. You can tell me your thoughts on it. But you should know that all these different dialogue options do affect the ending of the game. And so there are multiple endings. And the ending I got when I played through it on normal for the first time, my ending was absolute garbage. Okay. I was not happy with the ending that I initially got the first time I was playing through this. Um, Immediately after I beat this game, I thought, "What the hell, man?" Like, I mean, I got the probably one of the worst endings out of the bunch. And I ran to YouTube immediately after I beat this game, and I watched the rest of them. As there's 5 total endings in this game, 5 total options that you can actually get, depending on the dialogue options that you choose through the game. And after watching all 5 of them, I don't think any of them were really that good. I mean, I wasn't happy with any of the endings of this game. So that's something, if you do want to replay this game, you can get those 5 options for the ending. Um, but like I said, I wasn't very pleased. I think this game, the whole game, I mean, the puzzles, the character dialogue, and even the endings, everything is just so damn vague in this game. And I mean, like I said, I just wasn't too happy with any of the 5 endings of this game. Um, Now I guess I will say, because I'm not gonna spoil the endings. You can go, play the game on your own and let me know what you thought. But when you finish the game, you are going to unlock a costume select screen. So when you start a new game, second time around, if you're still, interested in playing this game, you can choose different costumes. So there are a lot of secret ways. You can get your Google fingers and look online. There's a lot of secret costumes that you can unlock if you want to keep grinding this game. And with that in mind, I told you earlier that there's a lot of specialty weapons. And in your second playthrough, there's a lot of unlockable, secret weapons that you can also find through the game, based on different criteria that you can do to unlock them. Um, but for me, as far as replayability is concerned, um, the unlockable weapons and the costumes, it's just not enough to keep me coming back to play this game. It doesn't really entice me, and it really pissed me off because when you beat your first playthrough, there's no way to actually save any of your healing items or your ammo stash. So you're not actually starting a new game plus like you would in, let's say like Dead Space 2, for example, on the 360. You're kind of just starting a fresh playthrough with, fancy costume or something like that. And the other thing that really pissed me off about starting this game for a second time is that there's no mission select. Like, you can't go through and select individual chapters that you want to play on their own. You have to start the game from scratch, and you have to basically run through it, each segment at a time in chronological order. And that pissed me off because, you know, I mean, I beat the game, like I said, maybe a week or two ago, and for this video, I wanted to go back and replay a lot of those missions and chapters one by one to let you guys know, really what I thought about them, just to get a second look at them and whatever. And I wasn't able to do that. So that really kind of pissed me off. I mean, I think that's such a missed opportunity to go back and add a chapter select or a mission select screen. um, I thought that was just really bad. I think that's like a very common feature for games nowadays. Um, so I guess as some closing thoughts for you, if you're thinking about playing Silent Hill Homecoming, just know that all of the movement in the game and the combat, especially the melee combat, is very clunky. It's very weird and kind of abnormal. You'll know what I'm talking about when you play it. And the story isn't explained well. Okay, it doesn't give you enough context in those dialogue trees, and a lot of the cutscenes or the puzzles. And the melee combat makes some of the boss fights miserable. I mean, absolutely miserable. Like I said, I think it was that second boss and then the very last boss fight. Good luck, buddy. If you have melee weapons, good luck to you. I don't think you're gonna have a fun time with that. Because I just out the gate, I mean, I'm not a huge melee combat fan in video games. I'm just not. I don't know. I want a gun. I want a red dot. Something like that. But uh, but yeah, there's a lot of forced melee sequences in this game, and you're gonna have to get real good at the timing of that kind of flow. Um, I think this game as a whole, it's something I read about quite a bit online, was that in the mid 2000s, Silent Hill is a series went through kind of like an identity crisis, and I really think that this game highlights that very well. Because I think that Silent Hill as a brand felt very lost when Silent Hill Homecoming came out. It wasn't the traditional PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 Silent Hill games, but it also wasn't up to par with like modern games either, modern like third person shooters and first person shooters at the time. So it's kind of this really weird like gray area of a game. Um and I mean, I just want to reiterate that a lot of the puzzles in this game are bullshit. I mean, you're gonna have to Google them. There's no getting around it. I mean, I don't think a lot of people own like a strategy guide in their house to Silent Hill Homecoming. So I think you're gonna have a tab up on your phone on the internet browser, and you're gonna be Googling quite a bit of item locations or puzzle solutions while you're running through this game. So that for any game, that always takes some of the fun of it out, for me. Um, so I guess in closing, would I recommend this game? I definitely would for Silent Hill fans. I think just to see the departure from the traditional Silent Hill games that this game took, it's worth it for anyone interested in the Silent Hill series. I think people that are searching for Xbox 360 horror games that are okay with low budget games, this would be an all right game for you. Just to run through one time. Um, but just whoever you are thinking about playing this game or buying it, um, understand there are many, many better choices out there for a third person game or a horror game or a melee combat game. Any of those categories, there's better options out there. Even on the original Xbox, there are better, more quality, polished games out there. Um, and I guess if you did like Silent Hill Homecoming, or you're interested in this and have already beaten it at some point, and you're looking for other games that are like this, you of course might also like the other Silent Hill games. I would recommend trying some of like the maybe Silent Hill Downpour on the Xbox 360. I thought that game was quite a bit more polished than this one, even though it's on the same console. You might enjoy some of the Resident Evil games, some of the older ones, maybe on PlayStation 2. Those are really quality games. Um, there's a game called Cold Fear on the PlayStation 2, the PC, and the original Xbox. That is a interesting and unique third-person shooter, kind of in this style. Of course, I've talked about already in one of my audio shows, Deadly Premonition for the Xbox 360. Absolutely, interesting, very, very interesting, goofy as hell horror game. You might consider jumping into that one. And I guess, a couple more options for you would be the Saw games, maybe Rule of Rose for the PlayStation 2, if you're into maybe torrenting. because that game's expensive as hell. The Obscure series for the original Xbox and PS2. And I guess lastly would be Fatal Frame 1 and 2. I think those would also be right up your alley. But yeah, I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit here. Plus, my house cats are driving me absolutely mad. I'm gonna go freaking choke them out and throw them in the toilet here in about 5 seconds. But thank you for listening to me blab, and I guess God bless you and your family, and we'll see you on the next episode.